Hi, I'm Les Reed, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Center for the Biotechnology Workforce, located here at Forsyth Technical Community College in beautiful Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I'm privileged and happy today because I'm with Jordan Link, and Jordan works at a local company called ProKidney. Hi, Jordan. How are you today?
Hi, I'm very good. Thank you.
Good. Jordan, we've just come from the World's Stem Cell Summit, and we had a nice discussion on careers. And so it looks like you're having a great career. Can you tell me a little bit about your education?
Yeah, sure. So straight out of high school, after I got my diploma, I went to Forsyth Tech, got my associates in biology. From there, I transferred to UNCG after taking a year off to build some money to afford to go to UNCG. And I got my bachelor's in biology with a concentration in biotechnology.
Interesting career progression. So you started off at a 2-year school and then you progressed and went to a 4-year school.
Yes, correct.
Congratulations on doing that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about the skills that you found that were particularly important being with the company that you learned back at school.
So it was funny because at the time when I was learning them in school, I didn't think they were that important. I thought they were pretty basic, but things like aseptic technique, everything you learn from the lab, aseptic technique, everything that builds off of that. So pipetting, documentation, if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. Like rule, you'll find that everywhere. Basic math. Again, nothing like fancy like calculus. I did have to have that for my degree, but really in the field, the most I've had to use is, some basic algebra. So things that luckily I did pay attention to and I retained through the years. But yeah, it's really the things that you consider basic in school, but everything builds off of those.
So Jordan, in the discussion we had earlier this afternoon at the summit, you had mentioned to me that you're with sort of the same company, but the company had changed. Can you explain to me what happened with the predecessor, but then just explain the story really quickly as to how it happened that you were called back?
Yes, so I was hired in, I believe it was the summer of 2015, 2016, at the company called Tingion as a manufacturing specialist. A few months later, they actually went bankrupt in December, right before Christmas of that year. So the company was dissolved. All of us were out of a job. So I started kind of casually looking. I still lived at home at the time, so I wasn't super pressed to immediately find a job, fortunately. And then in April of the following year, I got a call from my previous manager, and he said, "Hey, some people have bought the assets from Tingion. They're putting it back together under a new name. Would you be interested in returning to essentially your same position?" I still hadn't found a job, and I liked what I had seen there, so I said, "Yes, absolutely." And I went back and worked there. It was an interesting few years. We went kind of from investor to investor. We went from being called Tingion to being called Regen Med, and then Twin City Bio, and most recently ProKidney, and that is currently our name now.
Right. And in the discussion we had earlier with some of your other colleagues that have gone to Forsyth Tech as well, why do you think it was that you were recalled?
So I was, as I mentioned, I was hired as a manufacturing specialist. At our company, from the day you walk in the door to the day you're like a fully qualified specialist who doesn't need hand holding, and you're just qualified on paper also, it's roughly 6 to 9 months. So it is a very lengthy process. So I think part of it was I was a fully qualified specialist, so I had value there. Also, all the basic techniques I had just previously mentioned, aseptic technique, things like that. I was down as having mastered them as I had to get my qualification to be a manufacturing specialist. So I think part of the reason I was called back was I just knew the process. I was familiar, and they needed people to come back who knew it from the ground up. And fortunately for both sides, I decided to accept.
So thank you for that. And Jordan, might I add, just from having met you today and having discussed this with you a little bit, that one thing I heard from the other colleagues that we were talking to was they just loved what they were doing. Mm-hmm. I sensed that in you.
Yeah, so starting out, I admit I was just looking for a lab job, period, because I love being in the lab. But that was 8 years ago when I was first hired. I just actually just crossed over my 8-year anniversary of this company. So yeah, back then I was like, oh, it's lab work. It's more or less what I've done in school. But over the years, especially in the early years, our managers, our directors, everyone above really tried to drill home in us, like how personal this was for the candidates in the trials. So, at first, we obviously all our candidates are anonymous for legal reasons, but in the early days, Deepak would go to the sites and personally be there when the injections happened, and he would share the experience with us. So that made it very personal. These days, we don't really have the people available or the time available to stop and kind of talk us through that personal level, but I've never really forgotten it. So I don't know how well I do, but I do try to kind of impress that upon new people when they come in. Also, it might just be a day in the office for you, but it is the life or death in some case difference for some people.
Yeah, so I think we clearly heard that in our last session that we did, that it's a love
Mhm.
and a passion. And it seems as well that you get a lot of joy in knowing that the treatment is going to actually help people live.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, this has been great, and thanks for the time today. Is there anything else, having been a Foresight Tech graduate, is there anything else that you would like to tell people that will see this video, probably later this summer when they're starting school here and maybe, self-selecting for the biotech program? Is there anything that comes to mind?
If I could just say anything to myself back at that time, it would just be, if you're interested in something, go for it. You never know what opportunities will arise, even if you don't think your odds are good. When I interviewed at Kenjion, I'm like, I'm probably one of 50, because at the time it was a hot name in the press. I was like, I'm probably one of 50 people not going to get it. I got it. So it never hurts to try, I guess is what I'm saying. Pursue your passions. You got nothing to lose. Just, you never know what opportunities will come knocking.
Well, I want to thank Jordan for being with us today. Jordan Ling works at ProKidney, and your exact title now is?
Manufacturing supervisor.
Manufacturing supervisor, and all that in 8 years.
Yes.
Wow. Thanks very much, Jordan, for joining us today. And I hope everybody has a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.